This is the alternative to my resting, not smiling face, everyone.
That's great.
I don't think you want to see this one. Welcome to Wednesday night's Captive Audience, the show that was born out of near tyrannical enslavement by the governor of Oregon and her executive orders. Back in 2020, we couldn't find a way. We couldn't, you couldn't do anything, right? You couldn't meet. You couldn't go to. You just couldn't do anything. So that's how this show came about. We needed a way to reach out. At that point in time, I was a member of the executive committee of the Oregon Republican Party. So myself and Jeff Reynolds hatched this plan to do this show. And amazingly enough, here we are going in May. I think we'll be going into year number 4, uh, uninterrupted, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because the show took off initially. We had some huge reaches, 10, 20, 30,000. At one point in time, we somehow we got picked up by something in the internet in Southeast Asia, and all of a sudden we had 90,000 watchers.
Wow.
Yeah, and now, unfortunately, because of mostly of what I say, Facebook has throttled us back to apparently where they believe we can be contained, and they don't need to just completely take us off the air. So that's the synopsis of Captive Audience. We'll be doing. I think we talked about on the year-end show. We talked about doing a birthday show, which I believe will be in May, and that'll be kind of fun.
No, that
But
sounds.
here we are, Don, with another day's worth of news, and man, there's some amazing stuff out there. Eye-rolling stuff, as one of our regular viewers points it out. Good eye-rolling stuff. So, what do you got for me, Don? What do you got?
Well, not a day goes by, and you're right. It's absolutely amazing. And I pinch myself just to reflect back what you said about the COVID. And I asked myself, did that really happen? I mean, it's easy to forget
Yeah,
that these people had us having to wear rags on our mouth just to go to the grocery store,
yeah,
and that people were screaming and yelling at each other in the street. That you were being forced in some cases to get a shot to keep your job. And now all that's in the rearview mirror, and it's easy to forget that the government did that to us, um, and we can't forget it. That was a huge lesson, and we really cannot allow that.
yeah. If that didn't open up your eyes, if you think that was just that can't happen again, if you thought that was a one-off, a once in a lifetime, uh, I think you'd be sadly mistaken in thinking that. Like Jeff Reynolds said, he said from the start, and this again, the show was born out of COVID, born out of that time, and we didn't pull any punches early on. Uh, I'm on. You can find 150, 200 clips of me saying that COVID was a political operation because that's exactly what I think it was.
Mhm.
But as Jeff Reynolds pointed out, it was just a dry run for the next one, which I think we're probably going to discuss next Wednesday, and that's the climate emergency.
Mhm.
Uh, and I pointed out more than once on the show that there's actually law in the state of Oregon, or ORS 179, which can be used by a progressive, commie, leftist governor to take dictatorial control over the economy and the people that live in the state, much like was done with the emergency or see, I even forget the ORSs now for COVID, but the emergency statutes that Brown used to shut us all down. And I think they're going to do that again in a coming climate emergency,
Mhm.
where we need to stay home. We can't drive our cars. We can't open our businesses. We can't open our schools because the earth is going to die next year or the year after.
Yeah, we have to set aside the Constitution because it's such
Yeah.
an emergency, right?
For the
And
greater good. For the greater good, Don.
for the greater good. Yeah, whenever you hear for the greater good, what was the famous thing from Star Trek? The good of the many outweigh the good of the good of the few outweigh the good of the no, good of the many outweigh the good of the few.
Right.
Never have more dangerous words been spoken, right?
Yeah. Well, the greater good in America is the Constitution. That's
Mhm.
the greater good.
Right, right,
So if you
absolutely.
have to throw away COVID and you have to throw away climate change for the
Mhm.
greater good, the Constitution, then that's the way an American would go. An American should go. Are we going to do that in America? It doesn't seem like it anymore. It's
Mhm.
it, it's very disheartening to have lived in a country that was delivered to us by, in my case, the greatest generation, uh, and uh, and see it just go downhill.
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
just it's just nutsoville. I mean, people. When people, I've said it. I've had conversations before about some of the products you've seen, just cheap Chinese junk products
Mhm.
uh, from China over the last 10 or 20 years, and you look at them and you go, "What are the people in China that make these? What are they thinking about us?"
Well, I, I would say, having said that, though, it's always darkest before the dawn.
Yeah,
Um, and this fight is not over. And of course, it's up to us to do things like this to engage the enemy, if you will.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and there's a lot of positive signs that the American people, generally speaking, are finally beginning to wake up. I think one of the positive signs just happened. I couldn't believe it. I think it was yesterday or last night when I saw they actually fired the president of Harvard. I was shocked. I didn't think they were going to do it. I really didn't think they were going to do it. You did catch that, right?
I didn't think they were going to do it either. No,
Yeah.
I figured it was
Mhm,
hands off. That you
mhm,
couldn't, even with all of the plagiarism charges against her, which I
mhm,
believe is the cardinal sin in
mhm,
academia.
mhm.
That they would just turn the other cheek and hope that the billions of dollars worth of withheld contributions somehow made their way back.
Well, I think you're right. At the end of the day, I think that's what really not what she said about the about Israel and Jewish people, which is horrendous. I think at the end of the day, it was the plagiarism. I mean, the blatant plagiarism. And oh, by the way, did you see her response? Uh,
No, I didn't see her response.
of
Let
course,
me guess. Let me guess.
take a guess, take a shot.
Racism.
Bingo! How did you ever guess it? You
I
are brilliant.
Well, yeah. I'm gifted that way.
It was all about racism. I mean, it was like, trust me. I read this somewhere.
It's
She,
only because I'm black.
yeah, this is someone who is completely underqualified to be in that position in the first place. I understand that she's the only president of Harvard that not published a single book. Um, to be the president, and I think this, in fact, that might be true of all the Ivy League schools. She's the only one who's never published a single book. That's like incredible. How do you get to that position and not have published a book? And then, of course, everything that she did publish apparently was like plagiarized.
Yeah,
Um, it's unreal. And
yeah,
obviously, she was put in that position because of the way she looked and the way she thinks. That's pretty much it.
yeah, yeah. And I'm sure she'll file a lawsuit, and they'll settle out of court, and she'll never have to work again.
Oh, hey, the thing is she doesn't have to work again now. She wasn't working when she was in the job. I mean,
Hey, cutting and pasting is working.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Control C, Control V. That's what she
Yeah,
knows.
yeah.
Now, here's the thing. She lost that job. That doesn't mean she lost her job. She's still working at Harvard University.
How is
Still
she?
oh yeah, still corrupting students and all of that. She just lost her role as the president. But let's face it, at the end of the day, what they're really responding to was all of those donors pulling their bucks away.
Yeah.
That's really, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that liberals will respond to.
Hmm.
They're not going to respond to principles because they don't have any. So
Well,
that's one of the mistakes us conservatives make all the time. We keep arguing our cases as if principles matter. Principles don't matter to them. Now, to the rest of the audience that's listening, I mean, that's a good thing. But if you're talking to a battle-hardened liberal, you're not. They don't have any principles. Um,
yeah.
they only respond. They only respond to power and money. Those are two things that matter.
Situational ethics,
Yep.
constantly moving goalposts, uh, no absolute truth.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm not sure how you can. I'm not sure how you can live your life on that kind of worldview. I mean, that would be difficult for a guy like me.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's and that's I can't remember, the guy who wrote the book. Now German economist Friedrich Hayek wrote the
oh
book
yeah,
The Road to Serfdom. Well, there's a chapter in the book. It's an egghead book for sure, right? So you read this book, it's a great book, but it's definitely an egghead book, right? But there's a chapter that I thought was like perfect, and it's said, and where he makes the statement, the reason why there's no such thing as a benevolent dictator. And the reason is to get to those levels of power, you have to do things a moral person wouldn't do. And that's why it's very rare to find the leader of a country, particularly dictatorships,
sure,
or large corporations or anything like that. Because to get to those positions, they have to do things a moral person wouldn't do. And when you
right,
think that through, yeah, it's really hard.
yeah. No, I think the Great American Experiment, as designed by our founders, was a backlash against that. I mean, it
Hmm.
was the same with kings and
Hmm.
queens.
Hmm.
In order to maintain that dictatorial power over their kingdoms, they weren't particularly nice people.
Yeah.
Uh, and they exercised some really, some severely unethical behavior on
Hmm.
their serfs.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure that's what the Declaration of Independence wanted to get away from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it worked. It's worked great for a couple hundred years.
Well, yeah.
Still working, still
Yeah.
working.
It will work if you'll work it. It's like working out. You'll
Yeah,
work, work it. But
that's
you have
like
to work it.
it's like hey, we have a saying: it works if you work it.
If you work it. Well,
But
and this is the brilliance of the
unfortunately,
document.
it's been worked over.
Yeah. Well, it's the brilliance of the document was they understood the man is essentially gravitate towards evil. Too much power in one place, absolute power corrupts absolutely. They understood the famous Lord Acton principle. So the objective is to, since government is a necessary evil, to make it as small as possible. So that way the damage it does can be limited.
Yeah.
And so our problem has been we keep expanding the power of government. We're never going to have, I don't know that good government's possible almost. The less of it you have, the better off you are. Because
Yes.
yeah, because evil people gravitate to where the power is and where
Yeah.
the money is.
Yeah.
And government is a place to exercise power and money.
Yeah. That's why the Constitution was written entirely to restrict government. It
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't a set of laws for man, for the
Mhm.
citizens to be governed by. It was a list of restrictions on what government can and cannot do. And really, it was not very much. And I think you could make the case that most of what government, especially federal government, does now, because of the 10th Amendment, leaves everything that wasn't, mentioned, enumerated that the federal government could do or not, or shouldn't, or can't do, left it up to the states to decide. I think you can argue that most of it does not align with the Constitution.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, I think, famously, well, maybe I shouldn't say it because
Mhm.
famously, Trump recently tweeted that he thinks we should build the FBI a big, brand new, beautiful, fantastic building.
Mhm.
And personally, I think the FBI should be completely and totally disbanded because there was never anything. There doesn't seem there. I don't think the founders envisioned a country where there'd be so many federal laws governing people.
Mhm.
I think they believe that it would be left up to the states, that we would need this, this huge federal police force.
Yeah.
And I think, I know that when it was created, it was a big deal in Congress. A lot of people said, no, you can't have a federal police force. It's against the
Mhm.
Constitution. I'm not sure exactly how it got argued out or pled out or bribed out or whatever, but it was eventually installed, and here we are today with a federal police force that doesn't seem to spend too much time on interstate crime or other trying to track down American Catholics because they're terrorists.
Well, once again, it's too much power in one place. that's that principle of too much power in one place. Again,
It
I'm no
is. It
expert.
is.
Yeah, and I don't
It
claim to
is.
be an expert on these things, but it seemed to me, hey, let every state have its own FBI. The
Yeah,
smaller.
yeah. Well, I mean, every state, every state's got a, I think every state's got a state police. That's your FBI.
Mhm.
And every county, I think, has got a sheriff. That's your local police force. And I'm not saying police aren't needed. Police are needed to enforce civilized society. But there's so many damn laws that I mean that you can be detained for. You can be detained.
Sure. And
You and me. Probably, if we walked out the door right now, there's something that some police force somewhere could detain us on.
and
And
that's on purpose too. I think it already, if I can't recall if that was a Stalin or a Lenin principle. You want the laws to be so complex that
mhm,
everybody's violating it. So now
mhm.
we can just pick whatever we want. You right now you don't even know what you're violating, but you're violating
Yep.
something.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
and you look at the complexity of the IRS, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I owe them money, so I'm in violation right now. So
Right, right. You're right. Even if you didn't know you could be in violation of something, and that's all on purpose. It's the monolithic Leviathan, if they thought, the gigantic
yeah.
government.
The other thing to your point, the other thing I try to argue this point a lot with people who scream, and it comes from both sides of the aisle. Scream, get money out of politics.
Mhm.
If you were to limit the power that government has, that a legislator has, that a representative has, that a senator has, that an executive member of the executive branch has, if you limited that power in the way that the Constitution, I think, believed it should be limited, money would flee politics. Because in my opinion, it's not the guy with the bag of money who's walking up and down the halls of Congress looking to give it to somebody to get favorable policy. It's not that guy. In my opinion, it's the person who opens their door to the office and says, come on in here and give me that money and let's make a law and help you out.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think, you don't have to outlaw, you don't have to outlaw lobbying. All you have to do is make it so there's nothing to lobby for.
Right, right. Because people are so ultimately corruptible, which brings me to the next one I was reading about. What was it? It was the senator from New Jersey. I wasn't really paying attention to that one. This is the guy Menendez. I wasn't really paying
I
attention to
wasn't
that
either.
one. Yeah, and so I picked up an article this and I looked at New York Times, so it doesn't get any more left wing than that, right? So the New York Times is bashing a Democrat. It's got to be pretty bad. But apparently he has been indicted, for working with the country gutter. Is spelled QA. Sure, pronunciation is gutter though. So it's not that I'm saying something bad about a country in the Middle East, but it's a small country, and he's been charged basically with influence peddling um, with land developers with this country to the tune of like just say a lot of money. Now, here's the thing that's so funny about this. It's almost like something you see from the cartoons. So they did a search warrant of his house, and it turned up two 1 kilogram gold bars and 9 1 ounce gold bars that had a serial number indicating they previously were possessed by one of the principals from this company. I mean, are you kidding me? And there's text messages with pictures of like gold chains and watches. It's like, here's what we have for you. I mean, this is the sort of thing you'd expect from a gang lord or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This,
Well, yeah,
this is
it's
a
the biggest
US.
gang in the country.
True. 530. We got 535 gangsters.
Yeah, they're all wearing their colors. They all got the little lapel pin.
But it's like unbelievable. And that goes back to, remember the famous statement from John Adams, it takes some moral people for this kind of a republic to work. It takes moral people. And I think what's happened here is the least moral people occupy the offices of power. The rest of the 535 people that are in Congress don't represent, from a moral perspective, the general public. Yeah, we got people running sideways. We get that. You see them on TV overnight, all night. But if you go walk through your neighborhood, all you audience members, you're not seeing that stuff.
Oh,
The media,
from a percentage standpoint, yeah,
yeah, the vast majority of people, and I would even throw Democrats in this bucket. They're like normal, law-abiding
yeah,
citizens. They
yeah,
really are. But what's
yeah.
happened here is the worst of the worst have occupied positions of power.
Yeah.
And they come from these universities. I think something like 99% of congressmen are lawyers, which means what? Which means they went to law schools like Harvard and got that kind of an education. So they've been indoctrinated in anti-Judeo-Christian values. That's who they are. They hate the country. They're not us. They're the ones who are going to. Most of the population isn't going to Jeffrey. What's is it Weinstein? They're not doing that stuff. But these people, yeah, Epstein. But these people are, and that's who's ruling us.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think from a percentage standpoint, I think DC and the Capitol Hill area is probably the highest concentration of scum and villainy America has, probably more so than federal prisons.
Yeah, oh, I think so. And certainly the scariest criminals are the ones who are smart. I mean, the people knocking over the 7-Eleven with a shotgun, and going to prison, they're not the highest of IQ out there, right?
Right.
But the people who are doing a scam with gutter, these people are high IQ.
Yeah.
Stalin was high IQ. Lenin, Mao, those were high IQ criminals. Those are the most, those are the most dangerous.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in people's Fourth Amendment rights, but it would be very interesting if the other 534, actually, I think there's more than 535 in Congress now because our population has grown, but I forget what the exact number is. If the other homes were raided, and I wonder what's in the other homes. I mean, how many of those people? 400, 300, 500 of them all have gold bars and other stuff in their homes.
I mean, the corruption is.
Remind me never to buy a serialized gold bar, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. Well, remember the case? And of course, it was a Democrat. Who else? In Louisiana, they caught him. He had $200,000 in his freezer. Remember this? This about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's like cold hard cash. Never had better.
Literally cold hard cash.
Cold hard cash. I mean, these guys, they just blow your mind. The kinds of crimes they'll do. Or how does on a congresswoman's salary? I'm talking Maxine Waters in this case, but there's lots of others. She is her Compton sits in her district. I used to live in Southern Cal. I know that area really well. One of the poorest counties, in the state. And she has I can't remember how many millions of dollars her house is worth, and it's not even in her home location. And this was exposed in her last election run. Of course, she wins anyway. It's just mind-boggling that could happen. Obviously, that didn't happen based on her salary.
No, $174,000 a year having to maintain a home in Washington, D.C., and presumably in your home state as well, would not be enough money.
And that would be tight. And that by itself, now that I'm thinking about this, that should automatically trigger an investigation.
Shouldn't it?
Yeah. When I was in the military, if you had a top secret clearance, one of the things that was an indicator that you might be passing secrets was if your spending habits change. Right. If you are spending and living at a level way above your means, well, they're going to automatically wonder why and investigate, as they should.
It means you're getting more money than you're showing, than you're making.
Yeah. And so you can't be reporting that. So it seems to me that people you throw Biden on the list along with a bunch of others, it doesn't compute.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's an interesting idea. As much as I hate government looking at people, as far as I'm concerned, government should have no interest in how I live.
No.
As far as I'm concerned, government, as I understand it, they seem to tell me that I voluntarily pay taxes. They ask me how much money I make, and I tell them how much money I make, and I think they should take that. But as much as I hate government looking into people, these people who are running our country, and I consider everybody in Congress, not just my congressperson, Cliff Pence, but every congressperson are doing things that probably have the biggest effect on my life of any body of people that there is. I think they should be put up to that kind of scrutiny. I think it's a great idea. I think there should probably be a committee.
Mhm.
When you drive up after getting reelected, in a Bentley, on $174,000 a year salary,
Mhm.
maybe somebody should go, "Hey, how'd you get the Bentley?"
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I think it's different when you raise your hand and swear an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God and all of that. You're getting held to a different standard. You're presenting you give up some of those rights. I think. No, I 100% agree with you. I don't, as a private
Yeah, it's
citizen.
hard. Yeah, it's a very touchy thing because I don't wish any
Mhm,
kind of loss of liberty or
mhm,
any kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
mhm,
I can't find the word. A loss of liberty
mhm,
or freedom that one does not deserve, even on those people that I don't,
mhm,
whose point of view is much different from mine, and I view as political adversaries. I don't wish that on anybody, but
mhm.
and it's kind of a touchy thing because they're elected. It's not like you
True.
sign a
Mhm,
contract working for the military in which they have
mhm.
you lose quite a bit of rights.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's an interesting idea, Don.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I hadn't even thought about it till just now.
Yeah,
But military officers, that's what they're under, and they know this,
yeah.
and they hold the right to secrets and things that same as a politician would hold right. If you're going to hold a military officer to protect secrets, and then the congressman in his district is getting the same secrets and doesn't get held to the same standard, that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, I remember we couldn't even accept donuts and a cup of coffee. It was like it
Right,
used to be $5 from a defense contractor.
right.
Meanwhile, your congressman is going out and getting a 5-star dinner. That does not make sense.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. People should. I guess people can look into that.
Mhm,
Unfortunately, there's been quite a bit of revelation on the political, or not the political, but the financial
mhm,
shenanigans of people who hold an office of trust, and it just seems to fall on deaf ears. Like
sure.
Maxine Waters. Like, I mean, we all know that. We all know that. What's her name? The former Nancy Pelosi.
Mhm.
Is an
Oh.
a genius inside trader. You know, she's beat the S&P, for decades, which is impossible to do. Every professional investor will tell you there's very few people who can do that. And they're worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, Hillary Clinton's daughter graduates from immediately. She's getting paid $50,000 a pop to speak. Nobody's paying $50,000 to listen to a 25-year-old speak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah.
not.
At least people like Ron Wyden and John
Mhm,
Kerry came by
mhm,
their hundreds of millions of dollars. Honestly, they married into
mhm.
it.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. That's how it rolls. But yes,
Yeah.
anyway, then we've
Yeah,
beaten
isn't
that.
it isn't it isn't it funny how they John McCain too, I believe, married into big money.
Right.
Uh,
Oh, I think he did. Yeah.
yeah, he did.
Uh,
Yeah, isn't it funny how families of big money have a
mhm.
congressman somewhere in their lineage, a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law? Or
And I don't care about any of it as long as you stay away from political. Once you go into political office, now I have to care. Right.
yeah, yeah,
And we see why, because these people are just corruptible. It goes back to that the Lord Acton thing. Absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. These people
yeah,
can't help themselves, and
yeah.
there's the big pot of money sitting there, and
Oh,
let's
it's the
face it,
biggest.
sure, it'd be very difficult to resist putting your hand in that pot. I mean,
Yeah.
very very few are able to do it. How many politicians have we seen that we thought were going to be rising stars and do the right thing? They get in office and then they go sideways. We can
Hmm.
think of a number of people like that.
Yeah, DC flu they call it.
Yeah, DC flu. Exactly. It's
All,
tough.
all the money, all the money in the world is in Washington D.C.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
You know,
because they can print it.
right. Right. I mean, it's, yeah.
I mean,
It-
Don, if you could print money, would you drive a Bentley?
yeah.
I would.
It'd be,
Well,
let's
maybe
put it
not
this
Bentley, but I drive some nice cars.
way. But let's just say that your morality has been compromised by 12 years in the public educational system and another Ford gut rot university, and
Yeah,
then somebody throws that in front of you. You know, very few people are going to be able to resist that if they are moral. And then you take a look at what we've done to these people educationally since the 60s. And I think that's truly when you get beneath the surface of all of this, that's hurt us probably more than anything else. Is the university system is run by communists, and eventually over the last 40 years, everybody's going to go through their educational system. And first and primary are going to be the people that run the country because all of them go to college. The people not realize this. The majority of Americans don't have college degrees. We talk about like everybody does. The vast majority doesn't, and the vast majority is never gonna. Right now, something like 33, I think only 33% of the students who enroll actually graduate. That means 67% don't, but they get to keep the debt they've accumulated, by the way, and they also get to keep the communism they've been taught too. So they go to the positions of power, and then everything comes down from them. And I think that's where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have, and then we, for the new people in Washington, D.C., we have the veterans to explain to them how everything is done. Right.
Right.
I mean, I've envisioned myself being in that position, and I would think it would be, I'd almost just have to lock my door. Just lock my door and go over whatever stuff is coming to the floor, so I can make an informed and proper decision and just not talk to anybody.
Yeah, it would take a very tough skin. It would be very difficult.
Yeah.
But there are those out there doing it, and I don't want to beat them up. But
no, there are some good and decent people, just not enough to make a difference. I know back in the Tea Party days, that's what we thought was the goal, was to get enough people in Congress, or enough people in our particular place, Oregon, Salem, in the Marble Building down there, to make a difference. And there were some wins. Mike Lee was a win. Ted Cruz, I still think, was a win. We had some, but it's just not enough to make a difference, and if people talk about, term limits, and I'm not against the idea of term limits, but I think the only term limit that works is one.
Yeah.
One term only.
Yeah. Well, it should be made a career. And what we have is people who spent an entire lifetime. I mean, how long has Biden been in politics? I think
50 years.
Yeah, and he's not the only one. I mean, there's guys dying in office. Right. Yeah. I'm like, these guys, well, like Pelosi was another one. Pelosi, and what was the other one? Feinstein.
Feinstein. Yeah. Some of those people are in there for 60 years. 60 years.
Yeah, I mean, we require there's mandatory retirement for certain positions. Maybe this should be one of those. Maybe that's another thing. I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know. I mean, I hate to put an age limit on it, but in theory, and I think the way the country was designed, that the first Tuesday after a Monday in November was the term limit time, where you could, that's where you could impose your term limits. I've called it that before, as a matter of fact, not election day, but term limit imposition day. But it doesn't work that way. The power of the incumbency almost guarantees that once you get into office, you won't leave.
Sure.
And it's very hard to overcome. All political consultants know this, that incumbents are very difficult to beat.
Oh yeah, once you taste that power.
Yeah. Well, it's the voter too. The voter, it takes so much money to reach a voter. If you're a congressperson, you're looking at, in a general election, you're looking at 600 to 700,000 people. That's your constituency. That's a congressional district. How do you reach those people and go, hey, you're the guy that you elected last time's not doing a good job. It takes millions of dollars to reach people, and I don't know. The voter will I don't know why the voter will pull the pin for that incumbent 90% of the time, but they will do that. And so it's very hard to change things at the ballot box. So maybe we need a constitutional amendment that says one term and you're out.
Yeah. Well, I think all those things, I think you look at it this way, what the left has done is they've hit us with 5,000 things at once. I think we have to do the same thing back. take a page from their book. Um, but we're in a fight we can't afford to lose. This I know. Um,
Yeah, we are, and there's not a lot of us either, unfortunately. But as you pointed out earlier in the show, Don, there's more of us than there have been.
yeah. Oh,
So
it's definitely changing. Oh, and here's one other little factoid I thought was interesting to discuss today. And these are things that fly underneath the radar in terms of news. But the Japanese cabinet just increased their military budget by like 16%. I saw. So they're going from becoming a defensive country, as per their constitution coming out of the Second World War, to
right, yeah,
being more of an offensive military country. And this is largely due to the policies of the current administration. I'm sure if you're Japanese, you're looking at this and thinking, well, can I really trust the United States to honor its obligations? I don't. Yeah, you laugh. That's exactly what I'm sure they're doing, right? It doesn't make sense to rely on these people, and they're looking to see how the United States is going to respond to the threat China's posing to Taiwan. And remember, these countries are equivalent. They're right down the street from each other. If you put in I can't remember how far Japan is from Taiwan, but it's not far. Let's put it that way.
no,
And the
it's not far.
Philippines isn't far either.
Same region.
Right.
Just a short missile away, short missile right away.
So the administration, by being so weak, is making the world a more dangerous place, is my point. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's an unspoken secret that the Israelis have nuclear weapons. I wouldn't be surprised if the Japanese do also. I mean, no one's saying that, but a country with that kind of technological prowess, I'm sure they could get one pretty quickly if they don't already.
I think you're right. I think you're right, and it's a larger, from a macro perspective. It's happening around the world. Military spending, military development is up in a lot of countries, including our own, and also nuclear development is spending is up quite a bit. Um, so I think most countries around the world are probably taking a good hard look at what's going on in the world, and they're asking themselves what you mentioned just now. Will the United States protect us, or can they protect us? And maybe that answer is not so clear anymore for a lot of people.
Yeah, a weak United States creates more problems than the rest of the world. Can
It
you
really
rely on
does.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we go down, the whole world goes down.
Right. Oh yeah, no question about it.
Yeah. That's why the whole whole globalist agenda is geared towards ruining America, towards crashing America. If you can crash America, then you have the whole world. You can pick up the pieces and arrange them any way you so desire. And of course, there'd be an axis, if you will. Uh, I guess an axis of evil is a good way to put it. There'd be an axis power looking to fill the void, and I guess globalists and the axis powers would have to fight over who picks up the slack in a power void. But I mean, the United States goes down, it has a big impact on China.
Right.
Maybe the only power of any significant size that won't have an extreme impact on would be Russia. I think Russia's done a pretty good job of fortifying themselves as a standalone country, and of course they have the natural resources to back it up. So
yeah,
interesting times.
Well, anytime they hate on someone, you have to think that someone might be doing something that they don't like, that might be good for the rest of us. And hey, I'm not saying Putin is an angel by any stretch of the imagination, but when I hear them squawking so loudly and being anti-Putin, anti-Russia, I got to scratch my head and say, right? You just have to. And one thing about Putin, I don't think he's controllable by them, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're so upset with him.
Yeah, I've heard that theory put forward that he's against the global agenda as well, and I can see that. I think Russia's been. I think they have a history, kind of a national history of nationalism, or heritage, and it could very well be the case. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think Putin has any. I don't think he has very good intentions for the most part, but
Hmm.
Maybe he has at least one admirable intention, and that's to keep Russia alive and well.
Yeah, what's that saying about making strange bedfellows?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's not out of the realm of orthodoxy. I mean, we've been allied with Russia before.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah. So
So history is an
I don't
interesting
know.
thing.
I guess I'll probably get the Putin lover thing now, and I'm not really a Putin lover. I don't know that much
Mhm,
about him, to be honest.
mhm. Yeah.
My you have a much deeper,
Mhm,
greater understanding of history than I do, but I
mhm,
know that we have been that the United States is allied against Nazi Germany with during World War II
mhm.
with Russia, and so if we find ourselves allied against some globalist intention in the world, I wouldn't be all that surprised.
So, yeah. I mean, you look at what's happened there. I think specifically with regards to the Ukraine, NATO looking to include them in NATO after the Russians had said, we're not going to allow you to do that. And we did it anyway. You're asking for it. I mean, NATO has worked brilliantly for what, 50, 60 years? Why all of a sudden is it necessary to bring all those additional ex-Eastern Bloc countries into NATO? Um,
Well,
all that does is
Putin believes it so you can station missiles there.
right, right, yeah. And hey, it doesn't matter whether we think we would or not. If you're we didn't put up with that with Cuba. So why
Nope.
are they going to put up with that in the Ukraine? We
Yeah.
we know they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
That's a direct threat to them. So now Ukrainians are paying for it with their lives. Our terrible miscalculation, um, and it flies in the face of history. It flies in the face of what we know works. Large countries like Russia, they need buffer. They need buffer states. That's just whether we think it's right or wrong. It's just a geopolitical fact. We haven't
Yeah.
had to worry about that in the United States because we have two buffer states. They're called oceans,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. But there was Cuba,
Mhm. That's
and
true.
we didn't allow that. And
Mhm,
if China or Russia seek to put missiles in Mexico, we would not allow that, or Canada, we would not allow that.
mhm.
Right?
Yeah,
You
there
know.
was this thing called the Monroe Doctrine. You could argue we wouldn't even allow it in this hemisphere.
Yeah. I mean, it's rendered kind of moot now because of hypersonic missiles.
Mhm,
It's a different theater than it was in the '60s and '70s.
mhm,
You don't need to be in Ukraine to attack Russia
mhm.
efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm not sure why. You know, I'm not like you said. If you want to put Ukraine and other Eastern Bloc, former Eastern Bloc countries or Russian Bloc countries, USSR countries, the border Russia into NATO, I mean that's just asking for
It's insane. And
poking the bear.
and yeah, and you can attack with hypersonic missiles. Yeah, you can win battles, but at some point you have to occupy, right?
Yes, every
And
war ends up with an occupation, unless it's. I don't know what it looks like in a full out
mhm,
use every warhead we have nuclear
mhm,
exchange.
right, yeah,
I don't.
yeah,
I
no,
Nobody knows what that looks like, but yeah, every war you eventually have to go door to door
mhm,
if you want to occupy that land with a guy
mhm,
with a rifle or a girl with a rifle, and
yeah.
you have to subdue the citizenry. That's how war works.
It's kind of fascinating. I love World War One by that. I mean, in terms of the history of it, it's so fascinating. And one of the principal reasons why we wound up with a World War Two was when World War One ended, Germany, German troops were on French real estate. They thought they won, and it was easy to convince the people that they lost because of Jews stabbing in the back. Look, we were on French territory. And the problem with that was they never got occupied. At the end of that war, we should have been troops in Germany. Yes, you lost. That didn't happen. So the
Right.
same mistake was not made. That's the reason why we had unconditional surrender at the end of World War II. I used to wonder that as a kid. Why do we require unconditional surrender? Like with Japan, for example, they're clearly beaten. Why don't we just say game up, game over? Because if you
Yeah.
do that, they're still the same people in power.
Right.
You had to have troops in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Uh, And that was the
Well,
reason.
Nazi Germany knew that.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
the USSR knew that.
Hmm.
Russia knew that.
Yeah.
Russia built a wall around their portion of Western. Well, they built a wall between Eastern Germany and Western Germany,
Hmm.
uh, or Germany, East Germany
Hmm.
and Germany, and also a wall around their little portion of Berlin.
Hmm.
They knew that. They had to
Hmm.
occupy that. And there's no way to enforce the government's edicts and policies if you don't occupy it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I actually talked to a World War II veteran. Um, I got to talk to him. I got him to talk a little bit, and he said, "Well, I was drafted or maybe volunteered. I don't know.
Hmm.
Uh, but anyways, he went into service um, after the surrender of Japan,
Hmm.
and his tour was in post surrender Japan.
Hmm. Okay.
He said it was very interesting
I bet.
to be there. Yeah, yeah. I didn't get a lot of details out of him, and I'm unfortunately I believe he's no longer cognizant.
Mhm.
He's in his late 80s, but
Sure. He
said it was well. He said it was a lot of fun.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nobody was shooting.
Yeah.
Nobody. You weren't shooting people, and they weren't shooting at you. It was a lot more fun
Uh-huh.
than being there before the surrender or being
Yeah.
in the European theater.
But think about the power of their propaganda. These dictatorial states have such sensational propaganda. Japanese citizens were jumping off cliffs because they were told that if they surrendered to Americans, they'd be like killed, burned alive, eaten, all of those kinds of things, right? And
Right.
there's video. You can see it. You go on the internet and find it right now. Jumping off
Yeah.
cliffs, committing
Yeah.
suicide because of the lies they were fed. It's amazing the power of propaganda.
Yeah. It is. It is. And we live in a technological
Mhm.
era now where propaganda can be
Mhm.
is amplified by 100 million%
Oh,
from what it was in World War I,
sure.
World War II.
Mhm. And
Communications in World War II were slow and clunky
yeah.
and not secure, and I don't know, man, it must have been hard just to wage a war
Sure.
with the rudimentary communications that they had.
Mhm.
Uh, and then once you destroy most of a country,
Mhm.
either on the way to liberate or the way to enslave
Mhm.
or to occupy,
Mhm.
communications are further knocked out.
Mhm.
And I think anybody that back in World War II, I think anybody that could generate broadcast a radio signal,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
you know,
Think of this. Isn't it funny? This is how far the technology has changed. Before we bombed, I can't remember if it was Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I could be wrong on specific cities, but we dropped leaflets.
mhm,
I mean, so we're
yeah,
dropping leaflets. This happened all the time.
yeah.
Telling people.
Yeah, well, there is a Twitter account called World War II Tweets,
Mhm.
and it started on September 1st, and it tweets World War II from day one,
Mhm.
which most people consider September 1st,
Mhm.
the first day of the World War II.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's interesting, just daily what happened
Mhm.
in this war. And one of the things was the British. It was several months before the British were engaged in intense combat
Mhm.
with Germany. So much so that people in their citizens were going, "Hey, are we at war? We're going to have a war or what?" You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And one of the things was dropping leaflets in
Mhm.
German on German occupied territory.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of Britain, this makes me think of this Britain, Taiwan. I'm gonna jump around a little bit here because I think it's kind of fascinating. So we know you have to occupy it to fully win the war. One of the things that made life so much better for the British, yeah, they got bombed. Yeah, they could go in their underground train. You see the video of them going to underground trains at night, and all of that. Lights had to be turned off, but they never got occupied because uh, uh, amphibious assault is so difficult. Island countries are really tough are tough to attack for that reason. You take a look at Taiwan, same thing. The reason why China hasn't done it is because they got to cross the water, and crossing the water is super tough to do. The United States, why? Two oceans, even tougher to do. But if you're going to beat the United States, you're going to have to occupy us. And how might you occupy us? Well, maybe a wide open southern border might be one way.
There you go.
It's unconventional, but you know what? It's brilliant.
It really is. It really is. And
Brilliant.
it has been ramped up again, not by consequence or not by accident or by chance. It appears to be by design.
Yeah, 300,000 in December. I just saw. I looked at this article earlier.
That's 10,000 a day.
In 1 month. And we know this could be shut down. And the thing that drives me nuts about that one, it's so simple. Just turn it off, build a wall, done. Nothing's easier than that. Don't want to.
Yeah.
Clearly don't want to.
Yeah. Well, no. And if they say they can't, then we're in big trouble, because if we can't defend our border, what else can we defend?
It's not even a military assault.
Yeah.
Which is in some
They're
ways,
not even, most of them aren't shooting at us.
Yeah. In some ways, it makes it more lethal in some ways, because it's a civilizational destruction. If you destroy the civilization, there's no coming back from that. You could lose a war. Lots of countries have lost wars and rose from the ashes, right? But if you destroy the civilization, if you destroy the moral code, which is essentially what they're doing, you're not going to come back from that. So in some ways, it's more lethal. It takes a longer time, but in some ways, it could be more lethal.
Well, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of upside for potential for fundamental change of America, to put it in Obama's terms. There's a lot of, there's a new voting bloc. There is. Karen, I mentioned this on the show yesterday, but Karen mentioned to me that, the way these illegals are being, these invaders, let's just call them what they are. They're invading the country. These invaders are being picked up at the border and sent to various cities throughout America. It's very possible that the plan is to organize them into some election year chaos, which we've seen with Occupy in 20, BLM in 2016, and of course, or maybe it was 2020, but it's a tried and true tactic from the left during a presidential election year to cause chaos. So that's one thing. So they could cause chaos. They can be a voting bloc. They will dilute and destroy the culture. Because if you import the third world, then you get the third world. And it doesn't seem like these military age males, which seem to be most of them coming across the border, are here to assimilate.
Yeah,
I don't get that. I don't get that that they're just poor people from another country looking to build a better life in the south side of Chicago.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that is the short-term threat is, hey, just like you said, disrupting the election, violence, all of those things that can occur. We're fortunate in that our southern neighbors are not from a completely different culture, like what Europe is facing with the invasion from the Middle East.
Right.
So it's likely to be less lethal, because they're dealing with some problems. This place is in Paris, you can't even walk, but they just abdicated, right? Have your own legal system and do Sharia law in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's gotten to that point.
Yeah, shadow governments.
So it hasn't happened that way here. I think one thing, though, to keep in mind, this is where the hubris left may come to get them, because a lot of people are looking at that. First of all, a percentage of these immigrants, given enough time, will assimilate, because life is so much better here than it was where they came from. Number two, they're more likely to learn the language and not live in some enclave like they do over in Europe. And finally, a lot of people are looking at this illegal immigration who were previously permanent Democrat voters, because it's destroying their neighborhoods the most. If you're Hispanic or if you're Black, your neighborhood's getting trashed first. Your school's getting trashed first. All the government things are being overloaded first. They're happening to them first. And the polls are showing they're fleeing the Democratic Party. So granted, we always have to take into account the ability of the left to cheat, but all other things being equal, this is really working against them, and that's a positive.
I sure hope so, Don. I sure hope the average voter has enough character to say, yeah, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
Because if you're on a certain side, you travel in a circle of friends and family and work people of the same side. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and go, no, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. You guys,
Oh, yeah.
you guys go vote for Biden. I'm voting for somebody else because this isn't working.
Mhm.
And everybody turns on you like a rabid Doberman. Oh my God.
Well, there's a percentage that's never changing. Let's be
Yeah.
clear. There's 20,
Yeah.
25% that 30% will never see it. But that next 20%, and I'm hearing it in some of the circles that I talk to, I'm hearing kind of a different tune.
I
Uh,
hope so. That's good news.
yeah.
That's
So
good news. That's probably a good place to end our show on. We're
yeah,
coming up on the hour, and
yeah.
I've always, I've been in politics for I don't know, a while now, and
Mhm.
well, I'm not really in politics anymore. So I was in politics for a while, and it's always our hope that voters would see what's going on and see what the effects of particular policies are, and would take that knowledge to the ballot box and change it there, because I'm pretty sure that's what the ballot box was designed for. Term limits, policy changes. I hopefully, hopefully voters on the other side are looking at these policies going, man, this is nuts. I can't vote for it anymore. I hope
Sure.
we're getting there.
Yeah, and I'm cautiously optimistic. I always tend to be. When the reason I say cautiously optimistic, that doesn't mean that I think that I'm Pollyanna and we're not going to get clocked over the side of the head before we get to the promised land. We're going to get a beating before we get to the promised land, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I do think that things are changing and turning, and we have a good shot to start winning, and we just got to keep doing things like we're doing tonight. So
Good. Well, I'll go with that, Don. Thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you everyone who joined us. All the great comments. I will be back again Friday, and Don and I will probably be back, God willing, on Wednesday. And I think we're going to have a climate change show, Don. It should be a lot of fun.
that will be fun. Thanks, Dave. It's always fun working with you. Everybody else, y'all have a good night.
Good night, everyone.